tables.
All right. Hi, Warren.
Hi, Carol. Everybody.
All right, with that, I would like to call to order this special meeting of the Town Board of Northeast. Today is Tuesday, June 17th. It's 4:00 PM, and I would like to ask you to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Lee, could you please conduct a roll call
Yes.
Supervisor Cannon,
here?
Councilwoman Morrison,
Here.
Councilman Fidele,
Here.
Councilwoman Winkler,
Here.
Councilman Mayville.
Here.
Thank you. As you all know, this is a special meeting to continue our review of the changes to the business district zoning, which were presented to us by the zoning review committee. And I have sent out an email with a number of them proposed to you. I've also provided you with paper copies of each one of the ones that I'd like to go through this afternoon. And in addition to that, I have sent you, and you may not have had a chance to see it, but I sent you this afternoon materials that we got from the attorney for John King regarding the wedding winery project. A lot of materials about that. And so I have Warren may be able at the end of our meeting, if we have enough time, just to comment on that. But I've written them back saying that we would not be able to take any action on them today,
No.
which is what they asked. But that we would take it up at our meeting on July 10th. So my request to the board is that everybody take a chance to look at those materials and be prepared to discuss them and take action on them on July 10th. Okay, with that, there are, as I mentioned, 5 things that I'm hoping we could look at today and ideally, hopefully agree on, and then have them sent to Will. Because Warren, I believe it was your request that Will give us the entire, everything woven into the entire zoning.
Yes.
Okay, so all these bits and pieces that we're doing have to go back. He is essentially the, if you want to look at it this way, the seamstress of this thing. And
Right,
has to knit together
right.
all these things and put them in, Yeah.
Anything that has changed,
right,
but Warren, you and Will can figure out if they're additional. But I don't think you want a lot of stuff that we didn't even look at.
but if you want all the stuff that they didn't even look at, you know, that the ZRC didn't look at.
Yeah, everything that's been changed from the original draft.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be the entire code.
Okay,
It's gonna
that's
be a
what-
big chunk of it.
it's gonna be a big piece of it,
Yes.
Okay.
but it will come, you will get it then in that form.
Right,
So starting from the top. We had a request for definitions of adaptive reuse, mixed use, and zoning permit. And these are suggested definitions for those 3 things. And they look good to me. They are definitions. And that's something we didn't have before for those. So if anybody has any changes to them they would like to suggest, let me know. Otherwise, I would like to ask for a motion to approve these. Yes, Meg.
I think they're great and I'm glad we are including them. Because it aligns with the other pages.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. So with that, I'd like to ask for a motion just to approve these definitions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The second one that I've given you are these purpose statements, and there was I got a little bit confused about something to do with purpose statements, and Meg straightened me out today. There is a purpose statement for the entire zoning. For the whole, yes, for the whole zoning.
Just one little check.
It's just one short paragraph, but it's the one that includes, the morals of the town. Which we are gonna take out, because, there's no place for that in purpose of zoning.
So this is the first page under 180-1 under the whole zoning.
Right,
And I don't think the ZRC was
Oh,
tasked
morals.
to do that. Yeah,
That's
morals,
funny.
it's good.
yeah, but anyway, I'm happy to, let's take a look at that. I mean, it is sort of the introduction to our zoning, and it should have a more eloquent and, better purpose statement, so.
Was that when
Yeah.
you were working on Edie with Nan? Or no? Nan said it should be updated.
No,
I
no,
Okay.
no, and I,
work with anybody on that.
yeah.
Well, I mean, Nan in her comments to us said
Yeah.
it should be updated.
Yes, no, she did not give us any comments, I will send it to her. Tomorrow, and ask her for her comments on it, but. It's an easy one, I think, to fix. The,
Mostly just removing the word more.
No,
well, no, I think we can do better than that, but
you want to read it?
that was what got us started in looking at it.
Cause I haven't seen any text.
No, there's a reason it hasn't been. I've been focused on these more specific purpose statements for different districts,
That I-
which include, for the LC districts, the MA district, the Irondale districts, and the Boulevard districts. These purpose statements I've gone through at some length and spent quite a bit of time on them. And I think they're good. I think they're very good. And I've strengthened the reference to housing in the Boulevard, so that, to make sure that it is there. Anyway, I think these are fine. And yes, ma'am.
Just had some feedback.
Yep,
Sorry, I had printed mine out and then now I don't have any in front of me, but,
there's a copy.
Yeah.
You've got a copy there.
and I moved
Should be
it.
the second item in your pile.
I moved it. Sorry. Yeah, so overall, I'm fine with it. I know a lot of it hadn't changed, so, but at the same time, I went through them, and like you said about the housing, I appreciate that being included. There was just one part. The purpose statement in the Boulevard regarding the Irondale business section.
Mm-hmm.
So, that one, I just thought it was a bit, so it's number 6,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the line in it,
It's number G.
I'm sorry, G.
Yep.
And I've been reading too much back. The second sentence. That the Irondale Business District is intended to allow a range of non-pedestrian oriented commercial uses that are not duplicative of traditional retail, professional office, personal services, uses of the village or BD West. I don't agree with that statement because I don't think we can limit people to, like, for example, I'm not sure Napa's in it, but that's just one example that we do in the village have an auto place, and Napa does exist, but I just don't think, I think that's not inclusive to say that you're allowed to have a business that might be in the village and also in the Boulevard district. Because it's not to say it's gonna be the same one, but that's it's competition, so. I mean, we do have Ford dealership, right, doing service, we have Basil doing service. If we have a small place to do updates or like a restoration place like in the village, why can't, if we list that there can be a place to do small, changes to cars or whatever, I think this is not repair and
Well, it
body
says
shop.
that permitted uses are intended to be a mix of wholesale business to business, retail, auto services, and so on. I mean, I think we get into trying.
I just
we
think the
get-
word duplicative is not proper. We can't, I really don't think you can say cannot be duplicative of the village or BD West. That's my point. Because if someone wants to open up any kind of thing that might already be in a village, this is the town of Northeast, so why can't they do it? That's my point.
What about adding the word not necessarily duplicative?
That's fine with me. I
Does that
just
work?
think it excludes too
Yeah,
much if you say not duplicative.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
say not necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's good. That was my only statement.
okay, with that change, are we
Gotta
good?
change the,
The one word,
yeah,
And 2 words,
2 words, yeah.
What are the two?
not
words?
not
necessarily.
necessarily duplicative.
Duplicative.
Well, it's addition of, yeah, did not say it, but okay.
All right. With that change, I'd like to ask for motion to approve these purpose statements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next one up is ADUs. And here we've had, now we're getting into the more complicated ones. But this is really a very important section, because this will work with what we are doing. This certainly relates to housing. This is, as I mentioned last time, one of the, lower hanging fruit items that we can do in terms of housing. And the state has a pro-housing and it's the pro-housing initiative, which they've started, and which there will be training now for town.
Oh, plus 180.
The
Plus 180.
I knew I was looking.
It's a little separate, yeah.
And there's gonna be training on the, thank you, Meg,
Yeah, sorry.
on the +1 program. Fortunately, it's the very first day I get back from being away. But I will be here in time for that, and I hope, Meg, I hope
I can join it.
you can join that
Yeah,
too.
and thank you.
Anyway, this is important language. The thing which has been an item of discussion is whether ADUs should be permitted subject to regular zoning review or to a special permit. And we had a very, I thought, a very interesting and well thought out piece from Nan, saying that the least restrictive way to move forward on this would be to permit them through as the zoning permit. And not subject to a special permit. And I feel that that does make sense. There's plenty of opportunity if a neighbor objects to one. There's ample things that people can do to oppose it. But in the interest of making this as easy as possible for people to develop them, I think this makes sense as drafted here. Edie, do you have a comment or a thought on this?
Well, Nan got back and actually, she had a few comments, which I think you've seen in what you saw, which basically were, she questions whether the 12-month lease is enforceable. Not a bad question. And the other very minor point was on the requirements for the actual site plan, that they show road access. I mean, it's just that's a nit. So and she was very enthusiastic about the way they've been drafted. The only thing, and again, obviously she endorses, the idea of as of right. I mean, it has to have the right septic, it has to have the right, well, all that sort of stuff, that goes without saying. And will require a zoning permit, which we now have a definition for, which is cool. It's, whether we wanted to get into what, an ADU looks like. And that's entirely up to you, whether you want to get into that sort of, how high can it be? You know,
Yeah, I mean, the suggestion, for instance, there is that the ADU not be taller than the main building, you know, that kind of thing, which makes a certain amount of sense, because it
Yeah.
means that somebody
So
can't then
we
go
could add
build a
additional
McMansion
standards.
next to their regular house.
Well, it can't be over a certain percentage of their square footage, so.
Yeah,
That's true, and yeah, but,
I mean, it is subject, I'm sorry, it's not Edie.
no, it's entirely, if there are any points that aren't referenced, you want to add, is my only question.
Yeah, I mean, that's under one, that's under number F, right? I think the character, I think we ran into this when listening to all the other comments on the boulevard about, you know, the subjectiveness of what is keeping a character. Like, what is that? And since we don't really have an aesthetics committee architecturally or any, I think we sort of. That's extremely subjective, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's a good, I think it's a good statement, but I don't think. Like, someone wants a shed roof and their house happens to be a square, ranch, what's wrong with a shed roof, that kind of stuff, so I don't think we really are in a position to. Go
I
any
think that
further with
that the language that says an ADU shall be clearly incidental and subordinate to the principal dwelling structure, and shall not change the single family residential character of the neighborhood. I think that is adequate to me, and that makes it clear what you can't do. It would be something that is not that.
I thought it was a little odd to the last sentence to say, and shall have only one front entrance when practical. I just didn't know, like, there's gonna be many
One
folks.
front entrance.
Yeah, but if you have an ADU to the side, I mean, some already exist too, but say you have a garage that you make an ADU on top of it. The front doors on a garage is usually to the front, and so is your house, but they're two separate entities. So I just thought that was a little wonky. If you're building brand new, that's different, but we're allowing people to convert barns,
Oh, yeah, that still includes the conversion,
yeah.
which we have already.
So I just don't know if that line makes sense. I think that would all go down to also the building plan.
Yeah, and I think, that's where, to some extent, we leave it up to people to come up with a plan that. That makes sense to them as well. And. So I think this is pretty good, and I think it's, yeah.
I went through this, okay?
Yeah.
So, I am very happy with C1 occupation, that it was included that the property owner shall occupy either the principal dwelling or ADU. The owner shall provide with a permit application, a notarized affidavit stating this. I think that's very good, because I think that was a question we were all talking about too, and Ann raised.
So somebody can't just say that they live there, they actually have to. Take it a step further,
Right.
which is to have a notarized statement that they do.
Right, and then also, it could stop folks from these big corporations buying places up and then just renting them out, so I'm excited about that one. Point two about, like Nan saying, enforcing the 12-month, I get it, like she said, like. In another note of hers, she had said at one point, like, is that something someone should reapply every 2 years and just show? Some documentation of that, but I know we're not down to that level on the +1 if it becomes affordable. Hudson River Housing follows it to make sure it's the lease terms. But
And we
then-
don't know what might happen to somebody during the 12 months. They might
Right.
have to move, they
Right.
might have a job relocation or a family crisis or something. So,
Yeah, and I think they do say that if it changes hands, that person has to put in a permit in this, but on D, floor area. I'd like to request to change the minimum floor space of an ADU from 300 square feet to 200. Because many accessory dwelling units are 200 square feet. And 300 is could be quite big. And even tiny houses that are considered like under 600 square feet. Tiny houses on foundations are often less than 200, so I'd like to recommend 200 square feet as a minimum.
Yeah.
It said a
200 is
maximum.
is 10 by 20.
I lived in,
I don't
I lived
think
in,
300 is so big.
I've lived in less than 200. I don't agree. I mean, I think that's 10 by 20. And that's your floor space, not including a bathroom. That's not part of your square footage, your bathroom. This room is what size? We can. I'm sorry, I think 200 should be the minimum if someone wants to go up, because. Many people have a couple bedrooms or part of their house or part of the garage that would be 200 square feet. So. I don't see, if it's being site plan approved and those things, why we should say 300 square feet.
I mean, I'm just looking at. You know, this portion of this room that we're sitting in, just where this table is probably. 200 square feet.
I know, I've lived in,
Yeah,
I've lived
no, I
in this
know,
as a person, as a couple, I've lived in these spaces, so. I just don't think with people not having money and seniors downsizing. If you go to a lot of senior homes, they have a lot less space than this to live in with an efficiency apartment. So, I mean, New York State code goes down to like 100 and something. Anyway, that's my request. Okay.
May I ask a clarification? You say that minimum does not include a bathroom or kitchen?
Often,
I don't see
efficiencies.
anything in here
But
that,
New York State code in square footage, when you're doing even your house, a lot of times the bathroom is never included. In square footage and hallways. Yeah. So, I mean, we can look into this more. I'm just saying, this is very common.
I'd love to move this along today if we
Yeah,
can, so.
But I would like 200 square feet. I mean, it's a minimum. If someone wants to go 300, they do it. But to me, it's like you're stopping folks from adding in efficiencies and those things that I believe in the +1 program, we're gonna find out is important. So that was one request, and the second one was just. Sorry, I have my separate notes. That was really it. Something came up on the parking on the front page, on the second page, Edie, but that's a separate. Boarding houses there, but I think we took that out, but yeah, that was my request.
Other thoughts around the table?
So can we just go back to C2? Cause I'm not clear where we stand with the term.
The rental.
rental. So I'm hearing 12 months and then I'm hearing and agreeing with you, something were to happen.
Question is what we put, whether we put in a minimum rental term. Which is essentially the contract that somebody would sign to. To contract to live in an ADU.
Could we?
The goal being to avoid having this be in the short-term rental area. I mean, I see
Rather than
both.
1 year, could we do like no less than like what's standard, more in 31 days, 30 days?
I'm sorry.
For a lease term, if we did no less than 30 days. Or
90 days.
Then it becomes a
30
short term,
days.
yeah.
30 is, that's a month, that's pretty little.
I think short terms are also 30 days and less
Yeah.
by all the other codes, so if we did anything above that, then it could be.
right,
I mean, for folks, like, I think it came up in the ZRC, when folks are like traveling nurses and stuff like that. They often don't have 1 year, but they ask for, I don't know, 6
And
months.
not-
9.
Yeah.
because for a lot of folks, this is gonna be a new venture situation and
Mhm.
close quarters and.
Yeah.
I would hate to have us bound someone to. Living in close proximity to someone, they find out it's not a cohesive relationship and we're bounding them to a 12-month term.
Would a 6-month term make sense? It's sort of half of that. It's, it's longer than a short-term rental.
Yeah, I mean, short-term rental will be
If it-
30
Yeah.
days, you know.
If it
and-
doesn't
and
work out.
people Rent, you know, apartments on a month-to-month basis, so. I don't know how we're gonna enforce the 12-month
Well,
requirement, but I would say. It would have to be not less than 60 days, or, you know, and are we gonna be trying to do a short-term rental with this?
not with this, but I'd
Okay.
like, I
Because when
told
we
the
do the
board,
short-term rental, we may have to come back and take another look. at it. But I have another, problem with this.
yeah,
On F, the one family character. I just, everything else is objective. This is quite subjective. And I don't know how, our zoning enforcement officer is gonna evaluate these criteria in F. I think it's gonna be very difficult, for him or her to do that. And then what happens if there's a dispute and he turns it down? Because it doesn't, because it changes the character of the neighborhood. Or the architecture is not in keeping with this provision. What does the property owner do? Is there a right of appeal to that? What do we do in that case? So at the very least, I'd like to see an appeal process from a denial of the permit, either to the planning board or to the zoning board of appeals.
the appeal. The denial would be, what you're saying is that somebody could deny a permit on the grounds that it changes the single-family residential character of the neighborhood.
Right, I mean, that's quite a,
That's, you'd have to have some
That's a-
kind of big shed to, you know, or additional structure.
yeah, I mean, it's just a subjective determination. And we're asking a lot from the zoning enforcement officer, right? It's gonna have difficulty.
Well, I think it would be a
Making that
high bar to
determination.
say that, you know, an additional building is gonna change the residential neighborhood. You
But
know,
usually those decisions are decided by a board, rather than a single zoning enforcement officer. The planning board and the zoning board might be better equipped to evaluate that. So at least I'd like to see a
The
right
warrant,
to appeal a denial
but
of.
isn't that automatic, Warren?
Hmm?
I mean, the zoning board of appeals, if you're denied, you have the option of coming before us. I'm putting on my other hat.
I think you would, yeah, I mean, you probably. You always have the right to appeal
Yeah,
an
I think-
administrative decision. But I would like to see that embodied in here, so we recognize that there would be a right of appeal. So there's no question about that. It's just, I just don't know. I think it's too much to ask the zoning enforcement officer, unless we have specific standards and criteria to evaluate. It's.
I mean, to me, it would be extraordinary for a zoning enforcement officer to look at an additional structure and said, you know what? This is not consistent with the neighborhood. I'm gonna deny it.
Well, let me tell you, you've got some people in these positions who make wrong
Yeah.
decisions.
And what, I'm not sure that I understand why. The ability to appeal to the ZBA doesn't take care of that.
Well, it does, I just like to make sure that we might wanna add that language. Because I think you'll get some pushback on this, if people read this very closely. They would, I would imagine you're gonna get some comments either from Dutchess County Planning. Perhaps, or from the public.
Why don't we take up the rental term first and see if we can deal with that.
Yeah,
Would, I mean, my general inclination in this and the sort of the spirit by which I've been guided in looking at this is to make this as easy as possible for people to have ADUs and to rent ADUs. So things that get in the way of that, I think are to be avoided if we can.
Mhm.
On the term. I'm fine with a much shorter term, if, I'm trying to think, what was the
6
argument for a year? Was it to avoid,
Pulled out of the air.
okay.
It
Well,
was to
I'm
avoid
hap- I would-
short-term
I'd be
rentals.
happy with 6 months, I'd be
It's
happy
just
if you
random.
wanted to go to
Random.
3.
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 to 6. Yeah, 3.
I would, I mean, if we do a short-term rental, it's certainly gonna be 30 days.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna define a short-term rental, 30 days or less. So maybe we should just say, not less than 30 days. And leave it at that, so it's not used as a short-term rental type of thing illegally.
Mm-hmm.
More than 31 days or that kind of,
31 days.
yeah, more than 31 days.
Yeah, or if you wanna play it safe, say 60 days.
And then they'll do it
Let's,
5 weeks.
yeah,
No.
Yeah,
I think people are gonna play games.
they will.
yeah,
I believe
And
it.
this is gonna be like a long-term thing and people's situations change.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe when they first do this, it's for a family member or whatever, but. We all know that all changes. So now you've got this ADU and you wanna do something with it, but. Like you're saying, a traveling nurse may come through, they don't wanna leave it sit empty. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think the 12 months is kind of a long time,
yeah, no, I
because
so,
things change.
right. So,
Maybe
I
3
think making it
months,
more
3
than-
months, 3
Oh.
I
3
think
months.
3
I think 3 sounds.
3 months.
3 sounds good to me.
Okay.
Or 90 days.
90 days, let's make it 90 days.
Okay, 90
That's good, so that we're not like subjected to 31 days or 28.
On the square footage, basically following the same thing that I said before about how I come at this. I would like, if somebody has a small apartment, certainly be able to use that as an ADU.
That's
The
why- 200
200 number sounds very small to me, but if that enables somebody to have an ADU. And, I'm not in opposition to it.
And to the point of like, that's also subjective, as I've mentioned before, to me, a 12,000 square foot house is, I could never live in. But I can live in a space smaller than
Mhm,
this, and also the most important thing is safety, well-being,
Mhm.
and a place to call home. And that's my
All right.
argument for that, so.
How does the rest of the board feel about that?
I can see what
You okay with 200?
200, sir.
All right,
Sure.
now. Back to Warren's. What I see here is a whole another paragraph that has to be
No,
written
no,
about,
actually,
about how the
You-
appeal
you-
process should go forward and.
no, if you, I'm more in favor of more oversight over AD.
Mhm,
I mentioned that at the last,
mhm,
not necessarily a special use permit, but at least a site plan, so that's where I'm coming from.
right,
Because I've had a lot of experience in contentious ADU situations in other municipalities. But you could just add, a denial of the permit on this basis may be appealed in accordance with whatever our appeal section is to the zoning board of appeals.
okay, that's fine by me, that's
that would be-
stating reality.
I think the bigger problem is gonna come from a neighbor. To go back to zoning, to say, hey, you didn't keep your character, that's modern, and your
Mhm.
house is colonial, that kind of
Yeah.
pettiness.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it'll be better to have a board.
Right.
Make that
So what-
decision and they would have a hearing. But I just don't see how our zoning enforcement officer is gonna, I mean, in most cases, it will not be an issue. But there may be some contentious cases where it could be.
So Warren, could you repeat that?
So,
one?
I would
A
just
denial of
say-
a permit for an ADU?
Yeah, so I would say in the event, what is it, the permit is denied, on this basis. The applicant, may appeal that determination to the zoning board of appeals.
Everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, anything else? Anything else in here?
I mean, I did like that it said a maximum of 2 bedrooms. I'd say that, yeah, and I do like the occupation. And it does say if it changes hands. The new property owner in number 3, wishing to continue the use will obtain its own zoning permit. And also provide the affidavit that they are occupants there, so that's, I think is really good.
Okay, with those changes, are there any other changes that anybody would like to see? If there aren't any. I would entertain a motion to approve this language on ADUs.
So moved.
Second.
Wow, you were quick, Ralph.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item is draft standards for adult and child daycare centers. And the issue here, the basic issue here is the square footage. The square footage and parking, I think were the two things that we were looking at here. And the square footage, as there are 3 different levels of square footage. For children under less than 6 years of age. There was a standard, I guess the draft standard was the
What
one.
Will
that-
suggest.
That was the one that Will suggested, and that the ZRC basically. Well, they did not have this, okay.
No, this is
The
first.
draft standard of 125 square feet per child was Will's suggestion. A lower standard, his words, is 100 square feet per child. The New York State minimum standard is 75 square feet per child. I am happy to entertain lowering that square footage requirement. I would be okay with going with the New York State minimum. If somebody was to operate a daycare facility, they have every right to make it much bigger than that.
The
But,
question being,
yeah.
Chris, is that when, in a separate thing, when Will had just said. The New York standard for ages less than 6 years old is 75 square feet. In these notes in this point A, he says. Plus 250 square feet per child. Age 6 years or older, and I have no idea where he's getting that, but that. He hasn't given a number, and I don't think New York State Code has that, so that's the only other change I would make. If New York State Code has something for older than 6 years old. Because that's what it says.
Which one?
That's number C.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's C3.
Three A.
I'm sorry, 3A. But I think it's also C. There's lots of letters.
So this is on the last page of the 4-page. document,
Yeah,
right?
page 4.
Outdoor play area.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, and so it's.
I got it.
This
Okay,
one.
yeah.
So New York State code is on that one, is if you're 6 years old and younger, it's 75 square feet. But in his verbiage here, he mentions if you're older than 6, we also then have to align that with what is the comparable for someone over? 6
Well,
years old.
we're really getting into school age, into.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, I don't know why that's stated over 6 years. Oh, we're also, yeah, I don't know why he has over 6 years old.
We can delete that section.
Yeah, yeah, because most daycares, I believe, and it's also regulated, right?
So we
Yeah,
could just say,
Per child,
Per child.
Per child.
Yeah.
period.
per child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just take out everything after that.
What do you think, what do we do?
3A, you're
Making.
at 125 square feet per child. And putting a period there and deleting the rest of the sentence.
But making 125.75.
Yeah. There was also a discussion of parking, as I recall, that
Yeah.
we,
I think there's also, yeah, I mean, he puts in 1 space. I don't know if that was ever changed from the last time. But I
I
mean,
don't think
Nan
so.
was gonna look at all the parking for us as an idea. Page 4 of this also talks about temporary drop-off pickup, so I don't know how, if that aligns with temporary versus permanent, kind of thing too, with parking, but. Yeah, page 4.
Yeah.
B, it says.
Right at the top,
Yeah, it says it's.
minimum of 1
Shall
drop-off
be.
pickup space for each 15 children.
Yeah,
That would be. There aren't gonna be many that are gonna have more than that, so.
and it says shall mean a temporary vehicle standing and yeah. So I don't know how that works with parking.
I mean, I think I'm probably fine with this language.
And
We're-
the county will let us know.
Yeah, the
if
county
they're
will tell
not
us, right?
doing it.
My only other thing is, I am in favor of allowing this in the Irondale business section for site plan approval, just like in the other areas. Because it is possible that could be there too, in Irondale, and I don't see why not. And right now it's prohibited, the X on the first page. I mean, it doesn't show the indications of what district it's in, this part here, but that's Irondale.
Oh, yeah, the top, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just my personal thing, because I don't understand why it would be excluded at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly say that there's not a lot of space left in the Irondale district for anything, but it could be if that's where somebody wants to build it.
Or actually, in Irondale, because it was so built up, it would be a reuse of an existing.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, or we have Rob's other space and Irving's new space.
Yeah, I do not have a problem with it. I think if it's, we don't have a lot of daycare facilities in the town, so I don't think we're gonna face this problem imminently, but
I think it's good.
Okay, great. I'm good with that.
how's the rest of the board on this? Any problem with that? Okay. So we're changing,
What's this section, Chris?
yeah,
It's the third one over, is really Irondale. On the chart.
SDP.
It's actually the one
Below it.
below it, it was the SP, it's like column 1 and 2.
Ah,
It's just an additional SP
Okay,
in a chart.
all right, you got that?
I've got
All right,
it. In fact,
okay. Other than that? I
Good with
would
that.
ask for a motion to approve the language on daycare as amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we come to the one that I left for last because it is the one that I understand the least. But I know that there are plenty of people around the table who do. Um, This refers to the zoning enforcement officer. And I think that the one concern I've had about this is that I don't want to see us do something here that has no particular use, but makes Will go back and rewrite the rest of the zoning that we're not even dealing with right now to incorporate a term that we're wanting to put in here. If there's a way that we can do that without having to have him take more months doing that, I'm interested in hearing it.
So exactly, it's the exact opposite. It's throughout our code. It's in 180-84. It's existed from however long our zoning has existed. It's called zoning enforcement officer and it gives the purpose. So all we're doing is putting in the definitions, something that aligns with everything in our code. So Will is not being asked to do anything different other than put the description in the definition, just like he has code enforcement officer. And many, if you just read throughout our code and even on the approved uses or whatever on those tables, it has CEO. So it's actually, it's just a tiny but very important thing. That's it. And he brought up too, it just needs the definition to go along with everything you have. And then later it's the personnel thing, so. So it shouldn't create any more work.
Ensuring compliance, that's the whole key.
So it's already 180-84.
So this is a definition for zoning enforcement officer.
I'm not sure if the board got his revised definition.
Okay,
Um,
it is possible.
Meg and I have it, but I'm not sure you circulated it to the
Okay,
entire
I may
board.
have, there've been
I think
a
you
lot of
did.
pieces of paper floating around.
Well, Meg, do you want?
Yeah, that's.
Yes,
we
okay,
have
you
it.
do have. Okay, fine. This
Yeah,
is
I
the
saw
new,
it, I'm looking for it, yeah.
yeah, this is the new one.
Yeah, I see what you want, so that's
Yeah.
fine. Just
Well,
making
I'll
sure.
forward it because
Yeah.
it wasn't in there.
No, it's fine.
Edie, do you have?
Yeah.
A concern about this?
No.
No. Okay. Then.
Good.
Then I think we're good. Any other thoughts about that definition? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve the definition of zoning enforcement officer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. We've gotten through what we wanted to get through, and we've done it in under an hour. Warrant. I mentioned, I think before, maybe after you got here, that we had received from the attorney from Mackey Butts materials about the winery and so on. And I wrote them back saying there's no way we were gonna take that up today.
Right,
Have you had a chance to look at it, or do you?
very
Yeah.
briefly, it didn't say much, it was just
It was,
the EAF that we needed and confirm that these funded the escrow account,
yes,
and there's a map there. And I think it's the original language that he had submitted.
well, they
They made.
there were 3 emails that came to me. In succession, and each one said that they were with a slight change. I have not looked at the third one.
I haven't looked, I only got it late.
There are three, so just pay attention to the fact that there's the last one that we got.
Right,
Seems to, I haven't had a chance to look through it, so there may be some change in it. But the EAF is something that we would consider. But it is not the end of the road for them. This does not. This doesn't bring them, they're not done with us, is what I'm trying to say.
oh, no, we're gonna have to, I have to look at it all and, see if what they've done is acceptable to incorporate into a proposed amendment to the zoning code. And I would put that into a proposed local law. And then we would start the review process, which would start with the environmental review. Normally what we do in these cases is, have a public hearing and ask the public to, comment both on the substance of the local law and the environmental impacts of the local law, which are gonna be difficult to ascertain. Because it's not a necessarily site-specific project at this point, just allows that to proceed. And then, based upon the input from the public, we would make our environmental determination under seeker as to whether a draft environmental impact statement needs to be prepared. If we decide that it doesn't, then we would continue with the public hearing process for the substance of the local law. So we might be talking about, depending how contentious the public hearing is, one or two public hearings on this. Of course, we have to send it to county planning for their review and to the planning board for their comments and their review. So we would do that initially. But I first have to look over everything, make sure that what they've done is acceptable for purposes of commencing the local law adoption process.
So hopefully you'll have a chance to look at that
Hopefully,
before
by the
our
7th.
meeting on July 10th.
10th, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is our next regular meeting.
yeah, that should be enough time.
Good.
And our definition just says C 180-40 of article. So we're okay, I mean, we don't have a definition, it just says C.
What?
It just, our definition says C 180-40. So
Oh, okay.
guess we're okay for that.
All right. With that, we have gotten through the things that I sent out to the board. I'm still wrestling and working on the sign part of the zoning amendments. I'll be bringing those back, but that is probably the last piece of what we're doing. And my hope is maybe to bring it to the board on July 10th instead of having another special meeting. But if you want another special one, we can keep going.
Are we, what has to be done if we're finished with our comments, is that everything has to be integrated into this.
That would,
And then I have to look at this and see how we then integrate this into a local law. Because we have to create a local law amending our zoning code, which
Right.
could be formidable.
I should have started off today by saying the things that we're voting on are not final. We are coming back to them. We have every opportunity to come back to them and to make further changes in them. So this is not, with these things, we're not saying goodbye to ADUs or daycare or anything
You're gonna
else.
get comments, from the public and, Norm, did we have a preliminary review from county planning or?
We
Yes,
did.
we've had a,
Yeah, you have a copy of
Yeah, I
that.
have a copy of that. So it could be that they'll do a much more comprehensive review later on. And then we have to do the environmental review.
well, let me tell you about the narrative. It's 8 pages long,
What is that?
the EAF narrative,
Part 3 of,
yeah. I've been working with Will on that,
okay,
a comparison of this code versus the comprehensive plan.
yeah. So we're gonna have to go through the environmental review
Right.
process, which is difficult for something like this, because it's not a site-specific project. It's more of a generic.
It's
environmental-
every time you think you're coming around the corner and you've got blue skies ahead of you,
Yeah,
it just is like,
never
oh
blows.
no, oh
There's
no.
always a cloud somewhere. And, you know, these public hearings tend to be contentious. People's size on things that interest them or certain, I mean, you've got a lot of material here. So I'd be surprised if, you know, we could even do it in this space. We'd have to get a larger space for the public hearing, but I could be wrong, you know.
The annex or,
Yeah, we can get the annex.
I mean,
Actually, well, they're,
Or the new
they're,
town hall.
they're refinishing the outside of the annex, but I think it'll be done
yeah,
pretty quickly.
that would be nice. If you do that. But,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know, I've been through this before. It's not an impossible task. It's just
Mhm.
formidable.
so can I?
Can you just give, sorry, Meg,
Go ahead.
could you just give us a sense of what you see let's just say that we just take an optimistic view of this, say that we have one public hearing. What would the likely time frame be going forward, just for the benefit of the board, so we understand?
And we could probably get it done in 3 or 4 months. You know, I mean, there's a lot of. You know, work that has to be done to take this and put it into a local law format.
Which is what,
Unless Will is gonna do
Well,
that.
remember, your public hearing, you set a date, but then you go through all the comments from the county and from the various boards, all your advisory. Input, that has to be incorporated into the draft that will be posted for the public hearing. So,
Right.
Yeah, usually in something of this size, I mean, we're not gonna. I'm anticipating we're not gonna do a draft environmental impact statement. And when you do a draft environmental impact statement, you have a public hearing on that, then you do have to respond to all of the comments. It's laborious. But we would probably wanna do something like that, in a modified scaled down form. And at least address the most important comments, that we get, and make sure those. Comments have been responded to before we adopt it, so. Yeah, it's hard to tell how long these things are gonna take.
Meg, you,
Yeah, I think in one of our first or second meetings, Warren had wanted to go back to I had a list of things we haven't touched upon. Whether I guess we're not gonna talk, I mean, I had said I really like the lighting. Chapter, I don't know if the rest of the board feels the same, landscaping, I was fine with that too, but we haven't talked about it in a meeting situation. But Warren, you had talked about going back to looking at the prohibited uses on page 37, 180, it's like the list of the 5 prohibited things. And you had said we should really go back to look at that at one point, so he did mention that, so, I mean, I made other notes on there. You can
well,
ignore.
Warren's there's a point at which Warren's gonna come to us with all of his thoughts.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, we may want to expand this,
Yeah,
do we have a provision for adult uses? And
no, I brought that up, and
I think you have to, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anyway, but I'm just saying that there's, we will be looking,
But we're not doing the whole zoning now, this is only.
it feels like we're doing the whole zoning.
Yeah, I know,
I have to
but-
say.
this is part of
We're
the
doing the
update.
boulevard.
This is part of the update
Oh,
that the
okay,
CRC did,
okay,
yeah, this is a change.
so we should look at that, we may wanna have other uses that are.
Yeah, and when you've had a chance to look at this and you're our attorney, so we
Yeah.
will be interested in your thoughts and your suggestions.
And when I go through it more carefully, in order to. Segue into the local law adoption process, it's probable that I will have other issues.
Yeah.
That, I didn't pick up on my first reading of all this at the meeting, so.
Yeah.
And the other area was Edie had pointed out, like how important the schedule of permitted uses were, 1 NR rating. And if you like, I mean, I can just give feedback on some of the ones that I would like to maybe change, but I could email that to you.
Why don't you read that to me and I will
Because
send
those
it.
are the tables in the back, and Edie had pointed, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Edie.
No, they're very important.
Yeah, so I think that point, because my only question on that I could ask Edie separately, but I sometimes just don't understand why some things are listed and some, and same with parking and same with other things, so I can ask her. I can
Okay,
ask you
yep.
that Edie separately.
Yeah. You know where to find her.
Now, my one to do is, because this is news to me, you want to tweak the very first purpose statement in the code.
Well, certainly, I mean, it.
180-1.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is
Is
not
it,
gonna,
is it that short?
it's that
Yeah,
short.
This is
It's-
it.
Oh,
it's-
okay.
Yeah, that's short.
It's not gonna
But the
be,
one you got from Red
I
Hook,
don't
those
know
are
if you
pretty,
saw
that's pretty standard. If you look at most of the,
I want it to be,
Yeah,
I
you
want it
can
to be
just-
nice.
you can
I want it
just
to
adopt
be
that.
reasonably eloquent and uplifting. And, you know, that nobody's getting into detail in that very, very first introduction.
But they do, when there are challenges to applications, clever attorneys. Go back and look at the purposes clause. I've done that before and argued it's not only inconsistent with our comprehensive plan and logic, but it's also inconsistent with our purpose clause. And there's been some case law on that where courts have relied upon, so you have to think carefully about it.
Mhm,
But you don't want to just put
right,
things in there that are nonsense.
But it is a nice intro to our town and all the hard work,
mhm,
But this
the
is really
comprehensive
short.
plan,
Yeah.
and also of our changes in zoning and I mean, to Sam Bustell's point, he always hoped that the word housing, and Nan brought that up too, like we don't even have that simple.
Yeah, there's a lot of
It's very
modern
easy.
things that
Yeah.
are not, this is very archaic.
let's see what we can do with that. And
Warren,
we'll bring it back
question.
to you, but we'll be mindful of what you just said in terms of putting things in there that.
They have
are gonna come back
significance, they can come back and bite you.
To bite us, we don't
So
want,
everything you put in zoning, you know, when you get into litigious situations. People pick and choose and
Yeah.
things out that you didn't expect. But I have seen courts cite the purpose clause and either turning down or
Mhm. All right,
turning aside.
Anything else?
Decision.
anything else any member of the board has at this point?
I'm
Public,
gonna go because I have to be
Yep.
in another meeting.
you,
I don't know
you're,
if I'm gonna make it.
you are excused,
So,
Oh, good luck.
I'm very
Warren,
worried.
you're excused, and we're gonna have public comment, if any, at this point. And Warren, you and Tilly and I need to have a conversation on another matter, maybe tomorrow morning.
Yeah, not tonight.
Not tonight,
Yeah.
not tonight, don't worry,
I know what you want to talk about.
Yeah. all right, we'll do it,
Never ending problem, but
We'll do
let's
it.
see if we can clean that up tomorrow.
okay.
And
Do you expect to be in the office in the morning?
I should be in all day tomorrow.
Okay, we will find you,
No, I'm not gonna be in. I have a hearing in Poughkeepsie before the Department of Health at 9:30. I won't be back until probably around noon.
how about around noon?
Yeah.
All right. Are you here?
I've gotta go around right then, but I
Okay,
can stay
well,
2 minutes later.
We'll see what we can do.
Have those been sent out or not?
Let's not, I don't wanna bring it up
Okay,
now,
okay. Okay, all right,
All right.
let's,
we'll talk,
we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
And
all right.
It could be that I'll be back earlier,
we'll try and find a way to make it work,
yeah, okay.
thank you,
Good night, everybody.
Right, so-
okay. With that, I would, and hearing no, well, maybe I didn't formally ask the public for comment. Nope. Okay,
You did, but they just had no.
okay.
They didn't have any.
My only comment, and since John is here, is to say, your new reporter was here and covered the last town board meeting, and we welcomed her here, and, I've spoken with her since, just because she had a couple of details she wanted clarity on, so we're happy that you are ramping up.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think the story is in this week's paper. I'm so confused about what time it is, but last week's story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know,
Today.
it used to be that the paper would come out on Thursday, but I knew I could find it at the gas station on Wednesday afternoon.
Right.
But now, of course, with online, you can find it even earlier, so.
Well, I often, Tilly and Marcy often get copies on Wednesday.
Thank you.
yes, yeah. All right, anyway, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, all in favor?
All right.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn this thing off.